And that's why it's so difficult to just follow somebody's random strategy, because the way that you're going to interpret it is much different than the way somebody else is going to interpret it. And you might think that you're following it the same way, but you're actually not. And that's why you've got to really measure everything out, test everything out, and do it according to your own standards.
So welcome everyone to sitting down with Casey Stubbs. We spoke a long time ago. I think it's been at least like 5 or 6 years, maybe more than that. Casey is a full-time trader, teaching strategies to people online. So Casey, welcome on the podcast. Good to have you here today. Good to have you here again after so many years.
It's fantastic to be back. Thank you so much.
Tell me what's been going on since we last spoke. It's been a long time. I can't even remember exactly when, but tell me kind of what you're up to these days.
Yeah, it has been a long time. And, I've been just kind of grinding and working and trading, and the markets have been gone through quite a few different adjustments over that time. I think that was like before 2020 when we talked. So we had a big thing that happened with COVID. The market went crazy, which created a lot of opportunities. But right now I'm really focused on creating solid strategies to help people get started in the markets, strategies that are simple, easy to follow. It seems like nowadays that there's a lot of strategies, but it's hard to find one that works and that is not too complicated.
Yeah, you put out a lot of stuff on YouTube too about those strategies, and I kind of want to understand a bit more about what's your trading style exactly like. What do you focus on specifically for trading?
Because I have a lot going on in business and with a family, and I've been doing this for a long time, I really like to focus on longer term trading. The great thing about trading is that you can adjust the time frames, and longer time frames give you pretty accurate charts, pretty accurate entries. I feel like they're even more accurate than smaller time frames on some respect. So I focused on being able to maximize my trading while at the same time saving time, which is really a win-win combination, making money and taking less time to do it.
Totally with you on that for sure. What time frame are you looking at specifically?
I have a couple different strategies that I'm running. I run multiple strategies, and the longest term strategy right now that I'm running is a weekly strategy. And the way that I run it is I look at the chart on Friday at the close of the market, and if it makes a signal according to my strategy, then I will take a trade Friday. And then I usually don't look at the chart until next Friday. And so it's literally about 15 minutes a week of trading. And, with weekly charts, you get that breakout on a weekly chart. It saves you a lot of time, and it saves you from, getting out of the trade, because it can handle a little bit of a pullback using the weekly charts. And it just works really well. It's consistent, and it puts out every single week.
I do something similar too. People won't understand how good the weekly is for in terms of freedom you have. You can just do whatever you want the whole week, and then you have the weekly chart to look at. It wouldn't be like my entire trading for sure, and I'm sure it's not for you, but it's a good addition to all the trading you're already doing, which is kind of nice for sure.
Right, and with you traveling around the way that you do, I'm sure that adds a lot of freedom for your schedule, because you got to hit a plane or a boat or a train or whatever it is that you're doing. You need to be able to have time, and it's a myth. There's a myth out there that says that you have to be in front of the charts all the time, or that you have to work at it. And I think a lot of it is a mental block, as people think, well, in order for me to make money, I have to work, right? And it's like you feel validated by the work that you do, and it just doesn't feel right if you're basically working, making money, not doing anything.
What's the lowest time frame that you go on? Is it the 1 hour chart, or is it higher than that?
Well, for this particular strategy, I will look at the weekly. The way the strategy actually works is I look for a couple key things. I actually call it the baseline, right? So there's a few factors that I really need in order to take the trade. And so one of the things that I like to see is I like to see consolidation, right? So that's kind of the first thing I look for is I look for a consolidation pattern where the market's going sideways. And then I look for a push out of the consolidation so that's like the second thing that I look for. And then the third thing I look for is volume. And then the fourth thing is I'm looking for a chart pattern to confirm that in alignment with the moving averages. And so when I get all 5 things in alignment, to me, that's a big signal that the market is ready to move. And so I don't even really need to go down to a lower time frame at all. But I will sometimes go down to a daily chart just to kind of see what it looks like, because I found that sometimes if it's, at a top of a range, maybe at a daily chart, I can get an even better price if I wait for a pullback, if I feel like it. So I usually don't go to a lower time frames, but again, I do also have some other strategies that use lower time frames as well. But for that particular strategy, I'm just focused on the weekly. And with the other strategies that I run, it's not quite as consistent because I am not sure if I'm going to be looking at the markets that week. It's not like I'm like every Monday I'm going to trade my 1 hour strategy at 9 a.m. I'm not going to do that. If I have some extra time and I'm interested in trading, I will do it. But for the most part, I'm sticking with my weekly strategy. I found that the key to success is being consistent. Consistency, I think, in trading is a superpower, and following your rules. If you can follow your rules and be consistent, then you can learn your strategy. You can learn and see what is working, what's not working, and then make adjustments for the strategy and make any changes if you need to. I feel like a lot of traders get in a big hurry. They want to make money. They want to make it fast. And because of that sense of urgency, and I agree, you want to be urgent. You want to be moving forward. But because of that sense of urgency, people end up spinning their wheels. It's like they push the gas. They want to go 1,000,000 miles an hour, and they ended up going nowhere because they're spinning their wheels. And then they start jumping from strategy to strategy. They start doubting themselves. They don't know what's working. They don't know really what they're doing, but it's really operating out of a state of panic. And I say this not to be critical, but because I have sat down at a coffee shop and we talk with people. I find out, what people are going through. I try to get into their mindset. I try to find out what circumstance they are in life. And, to be honest, a lot of people are struggling. They're like, I'm 65 years old and I can't retire from my job, but I should be retiring because I don't have enough money to retire. I'm in debt and I am in a lot of trouble. And if only I could make a lot of money trading, this would solve all my problems and I would be able to be financially free once and for all. And so because of that big problem in their lives, it causes them to act crazy. And then they do things in trading that just doesn't make any sense. And it gets them in an even bigger mess.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So if I understand this right, your weekly strategy is the main strategy you focus on. Is it the core one, or do you have other stuff that you focus on trading?
The weekly strategy is my core strategy. And then, for a lower time frame strategy, what works really, really well. And again, this is, I believe that simple strategies are the best. But if you're going to be a day trader, what works really well for me, and it will only work if you're consistent and you can follow your rules, because you're not going to get it right every time. But the thing that works really well is finding levels, right? If you find key levels on your chart. So step one is you go through, and whatever time frame you're trading, it really doesn't matter. Whether it's the weekly, the 1 minute, the 15-minute, whatever it is, you just go and find those levels, and then you trade the chart patterns off the levels. So if you've got an uptrend and you see a pullback pushing into a support level, you look for price to hit that level and you look for a pin bar right off of it and you take that trade. Now, the combination of the pin bar with the level and in the direction of the trend, those things work incredibly well. It's just I don't know. It's if you're consistently and you just follow it, you manage your risk, it works great. And so that is probably my second best strategy. And I actually do that on a 15-minute time frame, and it's so easy. Anybody, and I'm not trying to oversimplify trading because it's complicated. It takes years to do. It's not easy, but this is actually easy. You just draw the lines and you find the patterns. Anyone can do that. The hard part is being consistent and following the rules. Is that something that you've found or what would you think about that?
Levels are really good. What I found is people have a hard time drawing them properly. They have a hard time to, like, you could be drawing levels because you've done it for a long time. They would draw the levels and it would be like way different from what you would draw yourself. How do you get people to draw good levels in the chart?
So that is a really interesting observation. And that is I would just say that that's something that I have also found. And I would say there's probably different ways that you can do it, as long as you find a way that is consistent with you, right? And so, and then work on that and then find out which one's better. But one way that I like to put it at it is everybody looks at the market differently. Everybody sees it with their own eyes and with different perspectives. And so, if you're trying to do a method, learn the method that you're trading. And I was actually just talking about a similar circumstance with just the way that people see things differently. If I'm in the park and I'm walking in the park and I see, a car accident or something, and, the police will interview me and then they interview another eyewitness. And the story that they will get, you'd think that sometimes they're talking to two different people because the details that I give are totally different details. The sounds, the sights, the smells, everything that I share is a little bit different than what somebody else shares. And if you weren't trained, you might think that it was somebody describing a totally different event. And that's because everybody sees things differently. And that's why it's so difficult to just follow somebody's random strategy, because the way that you're going to interpret it is much different than the way somebody else is going to interpret it. And you might think that you're following it the same way, but you're actually not. And that's why you've got to really measure everything out, test everything out, and do it according to your own standards.
So interesting. As someone who teaches strategy to people, like you've done YouTube videos on this, people can just watch it, they can learn it, they can apply it. Do you want them to apply exactly what you tell them, or do you want them to kind of tweak it, make it their own, and adjust it? Or would they lose money doing that?
Well, I think that the strategy, like I had mentioned, the strategy, I feel like it's very simple. and I laugh because it's hard to articulate, but sometimes when you're saying how to do something, people just aren't, they're not you, right? So when you, Etienne, tell somebody how to do something, they're not you. And so, yes, I want them to follow exactly what I'm telling them, right? I do. But again, what is simple for me is not simple for someone else, right? And so, yes, you should follow exactly what I say, but you still have to learn. There's something that has to transpire into your own mind. You have to learn it. You have to practice, right? So my recommendation for people is practice it and mark their results, and then just continually to practice and make observations. I have coaching students, and what I do with them is I'm like, hey, you know what? Write all your trades out and do your observations, and then we're going to look at it together. And, through the process, and I say, we're going to just take steps here. As long as we're taking one step forward, we're learning a little bit every day. Through the process of writing notes and making observations and being consistent, you're going to develop the patterns in your mind, and you're going to be able to see things in the market. You're going to see opportunities. You're going to see trades. You're going to understand how the market works, and you're going to be able to get profit potential by finding those patterns.
How did you either find or create or develop your own strategies? Was it something that you kind of put together from scratch all by yourself, or you kind of got pieces from different places? How did you put this all together?
Well, I actually try not to do too much on my own. Because I've been doing this so long, I do learn things, but I try to work with people all the time, right? And so I'm always finding people to work with and to learn from and to bounce ideas off of. I think that anytime I have a strategy, I want to get ideas off of it. And so I've learned from a lot of people, right? So I've just had a tremendous amount of trainers and coaches over the course of my career. And it's something that I will always have. With the current strategy I'm running right now, I've learned from Guy Cohen. You may know him since you know just about everyone in the trading world. But Guy has taught me a lot, and I've worked with him really exclusively, helping me build my strategy.
How do you test to make sure strategy is good enough for you? Is it a lot of back testing manually, or do you kind of use scripts, or how do you go through that?
I do back testing to find the strategy. And I don't do an extensive back test. I'm not going to run it super long time, but I will do back testing for a few months. And then I will practice it for about 2 weeks on practice. And then once I feel like it's working out pretty well, then I will start trading it consistently with money. And then I'm just adjusting as only one small adjustment at a time, just taking my time, adjusting, because I feel like if I adjust too much, it won't work. But that's pretty much the way that I do it. I also do build out some automated tests as well, but that's like a secondary thing I just play around with sometimes.
So the thing about teaching strategies is people sometimes you will teach them a good strategy that worked in the past few years or something, and then they'll like use it for 2 or 3 days, and then you lose money, or they have a few losing trades and they quit. How do you get people to respect the process and like stick to it for long enough to at least recover the maybe few days of losses in the beginning?
Well, that's a great question, and the way to do it is to explain to people that you're not, you got to keep moving forward, right? You got to keep pushing and doing it. For example, the strategy that I ran last year had a really nice return, what I felt was a nice return of about 73%, right? Really good return. But that's over the course of the year, and I think, so to answer your question is to get people's expectations, because people really feel like they're going to make money every single day. And they feel like if they're not like, they feel like 73% is terrible. And you have to give them expectations and understand that there will be some losing trades and some losing streaks, and to just continue to stick it out, because that's where you will get your profit. You have to stand firm, continue to go forward, and not rely on emotions during a downturn, because that's when people lose their heads. They will either A, stop trading, or B, change everything, and either one, or C, they'll just start increasing their risk, or they'll do something to jeopardize their trading. And so you have to tell people to be ready for that. So, when you have a downturn, the best way to survive is to keep trading it, but minimize your risk until things start picking up again. Then you can increase your risk again.
So do you actually go and reduce your risk and drawdown, or do you keep it the same?
Well, I usually reduce my risk when things are not going well, and then when I start winning a couple trades again, I'll pick it back up. And I found that that's been pretty consistent and helpful with reducing drawdown.
How do you know when things are not going well? Like, what's the key point there?
So for me, it's when I hit 3 losing trades in a row, then I will adjust, right? So I feel like to really help myself out, and so I don't succumb to emotions, I make these rules very specific, right? And I follow them. And I've had to train myself to do that. I keep a checklist with me on my desk. I always have my checklist with me so that I don't, I want to be like a robot. airline pilots always have a checklist, and they use that for a reason. And when I was in the military, right? And what's cool about a checklist is the military gives young kids millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment to manage. Like I was managing a lot of equipment, and they say, here's a checklist. Make sure everything goes according to the list, right? So you can get people that are not really that experienced and train them if they have a checklist. And I feel like that helps me. So I learned that as a young man, and I just never went away from that. That's helped me keep things in balance so that I don't get off course.
That's good advice. I love it for sure. Tell me, a lot of people are going to be afraid of trading weekly charts because you can never get as much returns as like trading on lower time frames. How do you, maybe that's the case for you, maybe not, but how do you combine this to being able to make enough returns for your trading? Is it like having multiple pairs, having like many setups, or how do you make this work?
That is one of the issues with the higher time frames, because the way that I do it specifically right now is I'm trading options, right? And so I will buy an option, and option is it's a leveraged way to trade the stock market, and there's a little bit more risk. But I just go in and make 2 trades a week, really. I'm following a rule. Every week, every Friday, I'm taking 2 trades. No matter what, I find the 2 best trades that I can possibly find every week, and I follow that. And so if you do that, you do need a certain level of capital to get started. But the cool thing about options is, depending on your capital level, there's different ways that you can do it. The way that I do it is I buy a call option, and that can cost quite a bit of money. Some of the call options could cost up to, they can be pretty pricey. However, you can also do it as buying a spread. So there's something called a bull call spread, where if you're bullish on the stock, you buy the spread, and you only have to pay the difference in the spread, and it's only a couple $100s. So there's different ways to adjust the strategy based on what type of capital you have. But if you were doing different trading, like maybe futures trading or Forex trading or something like that, then a weekly chart means that you have to move your stop a lot bigger, and you have to take smaller size.
How many pairs of instruments do you tend to follow for the weekly chart?
So I am running certain scans, right? I'm running scans, and so I don't actually have to follow anything. Again, this is me working over, I think that everybody's got to build out a process for themselves, right? And to keep working to make that process happen so that things run smoothly. So for me, I run my scan, and when I run that scan, that saves me, again, time, right? I'm trying to run time. I know what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for consolidated. I'm looking for something that's consolidated, that's been moving sideways. I'm looking for something that's building a base, right? I'm looking for that breakout with a specific moving average, and I'm looking for a certain level of volume. So I run that scan, and it gives me a handful of stocks to look at. And then when I get what I need, I look through those pairs. I look through those charts, and then I pick the best ones from there. And the way that I do that, the way that I pick my favorite ones, I don't really have like a system for it. I just pick the 2 that look the best to me.
That definitely works well. So I think the idea of having a scanner is good, so you can kind of filter things out maybe a bit better. And I'll just call to like a lot of different instruments or whatever at the end of the week, which is of course a good thing. But I think for some people, it's like being able to have a clear setup for the weekly chart, and then being able to just like stick to it and complement it with like something else, like a lower time frame setup or something that tends to work quite well. Would you do on the weekly chart and like be okay with it, or do you prefer to add like a lower time frame to it also, like a different strategy to add to it?
Yeah. So with the weekly charts, I think that it's just so straightforward, so simple, and it just saves me so much time. and it's very consistent, and it's been working for several years. And so unless something changed where it stopped working, then I would just keep going with it, right? And so market conditions do impact it a little bit, but so right now I'm looking for buy trades because we're in a very bullish market. The hardest time to trade is when the market is changing directions, right? So if you're in a bull market, it's pretty easy. And if you're in a bear market, it's pretty easy. But when it's switching from a bull market to a bear market, it can be a little bit tricky, and that's when I've experienced my drawdowns. And so I'm trying to learn how to get to that point quicker, or maybe just stay on the sideline on occasion when I'm not totally convinced that I'm in the right spot. But right now, it's working really well.
Last time we spoke, you were creating a custom indicators. You were kind of coding your rules into indicators for your trading. Something I kind of did a lot over the past few years too, because I think it helps. Do you still do something like that? Do you still like simplify your rules into indicators, or is it different now?
You know, I still do a lot of indicators as also, and we've actually built a couple really good ones. Because again, I like to work with other people, and I get ideas from people that are a lot smarter than me. And so recently, my friend who I've been working with for probably 10 years, he came up with a really good indicator, and I don't even understand exactly how the whole thing works. It's like he's like a mathematician, and it's like a mathematical formula that he has helped create, where he's trying to interpret. It's kind of like he's trying to focus on interpreting where the price is going to go. Rather than being a lagging indicator, it's trying to predict the future price. And so we've been building that out pretty good and have been enjoying trading that. And that's one of the other strategies that I've been working on.
I think the key thing is if you get even rules to people, they can always like see it a different way, or like interpret it like a different way. If you give them an indicator with like the rules in it, then they have only one way to see it. So it's kind of a good thing to make your results applicable to other people, which is kind of nice.
You know what? You're right. If you have an indicator, then it's all right there, and there's not much interpretation. And so that is a very great way to do it.
Tell me where people can find you, connect with you if they want to reach out or see what you're doing and learn from you after this podcast.
Yeah, so I got a couple things that's new, but my website is tradingstrategyguides.com. You know, I've been hosting my podcast, which you can find that on my website. It's called the How to Trade It podcast, where I interview a lot of really smart traders. And that's where I meet these people, like where I met you, where I meet other people, is interviewing them. And that's helped me out a lot with trading, so I hope that people will pick that up. I have a lot of strategies on my website, and I also just recently published a book called The Complete Trading System, and that book is available on my website as well. So everything you can find about me is on my website, tradingstrategyguides.com.
Yeah, we'll put a link below for that in the video. People can find you there. And you do put out a lot of content on YouTube too. I've seen a few of your videos recently too. Good stuff. So I really appreciate that you put this out for people. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. So thanks, Casey, for your time. I appreciate the advice you gave here to my listeners. Hopefully they get something out of it, and we can probably bring back on later to discuss trading even more. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you.